Good morning. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many familiar faces, so many new faces, and I know a lot of us yesterday had the opportunity to spend some time together. We had two kind of parallel tracks. We had our Propel user group that we affectionately call PUG, and then we had our new user summit, so people who are new to Propel to spend a little bit of time giving some tips and tricks about what's going on with Propel. So I want to, first of all, thank everyone for coming. You know, you all have day jobs, and I don't think those day jobs are attending conferences, but thank you for taking the time, for coming out and spending time with us. You know, we hope you have the opportunity here to learn from each other, to build community, and to be able to take home things that will help you in your job and your company to really continue to drive those companies forward. I want to specifically thank all of our sponsors. We have a lot of great returning sponsors from last year and several new ones. We have the teams here from Build and Razorleaf and SiliconExpert. And all three of these actually have products which connect into Propel, which can drive additional value to your Propel investments. And we encourage you to meet with them and all of our sponsors when you get a chance, when you grab your cup of coffee on the breaks. And also want to thank our presenters. We have really a great lineup for today and a mix of presenters. We have luminaries here from the tech industry, from Deloitte and Google and KPMG, and maybe Salesforce if our speaker gets over his sore throat. And of course, great customer stories to tell from customers who have been with us for many years that have talked about the arc of their time with Propel, as well as some brand new customers as well. You know, so it's a bit of an understatement to say that we live in a dynamic world, right? And that things are ever changing. And every year I feel like when I present to you all, I talk about this year is the most crazy year, the most has changed, and yet the next year it seems to be even more change. And that's just has become the proverbial constant for us, the change. And as I thought about this, I really looked to group this into three categories that I think kind of will summarize the discussion here. One is things around the economy, things around politics, and then things around technology. So first jumping in on the economy, and a year ago when I was on stage talking to you all, we were, of course, we're in the throes of all things around tariffs. They were relatively new at the time, but there was a lot of optimism in general about investment in manufacturing, reshoring in manufacturing, and I think a lot of us felt we had a lot of tailwind and ready to go. Fast forward a year and things are a little less certain today. And I borrowed here some stats from Deloitte. They have an annual manufacturing industry outlook, which kind of gives a great summary state of the nation in respect to manufacturing. And a couple of things they point out. One is, the costs to make our products are increasing, both on the raw material and subassembly perspective, as well as on the labor side. And that's causing us to invest less in the business. We have fewer people that we're employing today in manufacturing jobs, and then the capital investment for new plants and retrofitting plants is down as well. And a lot of that, of course, is tied to just the macro uncertainty around trade and tariffs. And with that uncertainty, it's hard to have the confidence to invest. And I think we're all hopeful that this settles out here in the not too distant future so that we have a more stable environment that we can build upon and invest in. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of other things in the study they pointed out that are really positive. And what Deloitte calls smart manufacturing, which is leveraging IoT and AI and advanced analytics to drive manufacturing, that virtually everyone they surveyed says they're using some form of smart manufacturing to make their processes better, to automate their facilities, to really drive future productivity. And so there's really a great opportunity leveraging these smart technologies to help drive. So a bit of a mixed bag on economy, but safe to say things continue to be quite dynamic. Which then leads me to, speaking of dynamic, to politics. I had the opportunity last month. I attended a symposium in Washington, D.C. that brought together elected and appointed officials from major branches of government, a closed-door session, really fascinating opportunity. And out of that, kind of a number of key lessons that I learned that I want to share with you all that really impact manufacturers today. And the first of these is that when you look at the global, this is actually domestic, the domestic employment picture, over the last couple years, we've had relatively flat growth on employment, which typically in all economies in the US before now would have said unemployment rates must be skyrocketing. But they're actually not. They're staying stable and they're actually at historic relative lows. And so we had this new interesting dichotomy where the economy is expanding, we're growing, yet we aren't creating net new jobs in the process. So it's this new dynamic for us of how do we continue to grow our businesses without necessarily growing overall headcount. The second, obviously, is the current and potential conflicts around the world that are directly impacting us. They are impacting where we can manufacture our products, where we're sourcing our raw materials from, our routes to market for our products, just overall major disruption to all things supply chain. And the third, and one that I found particularly interesting, is out of these regional conflicts, there's the defense companies are really innovating quite dramatically. There's, as opposed to going from historically very heavy capital-intensive manufacturing processes, people are moving to much more flexible, dynamic, just-in-time manufacturing approaches in defense in support of this kind of next new generation of products that they're building. You know, and historically, defense has always borrowed from commercial for its innovation. And now there's an opportunity potentially to see what's going on in the defense sector and how that may impact how we think about driving commercial manufacturing and how we can bring forward a new level of innovation and speed to market. Okay, so when you think Washington, D.C., I think the first word that comes up is dysfunction. And maybe the second one might be partisanship. And of course, there is lots of that. But what was interesting in the session I attended, behind closed doors, no cameras, no recording devices, you got to understand a bit more of what's going on really in Washington. And what I heard really was hopeful. People are actually doing work. The elected officials are working together to make things happen. And it doesn't make the news because it's not that exciting. The things that make the news are, of course, those which divide. But it was really hopeful when I walked away, just knowing that there are people actually still focused on working with people regardless of what party they're in to make things happen. And probably the item which they agreed on the most, interestingly, was artificial intelligence. Really, everyone, regardless of their political affiliation, was really talking about AI. And one thing that I found also as a fellow technologist exciting to see was they actually get it. They broadly understood AI. They could speak about it fairly articulately. They understood the benefits, understand the risks. And on balance, they are optimistic about the opportunity for AI to really drive the economy forward. And that's probably a good segue to then the third and kind of final lens here I want to focus on, which is around technology. And of course, when we speak technology now, it's really synonymous with AI. And as I was reflecting back on my Propulsion keynotes last several years, 2 years ago, we talked about ChatGPT and the advent of large language models and what could you get ChatGPT to create for you. And then last year, we were talking about agents and how you could use agents to drive business productivity in more deterministic fashions, leveraging those LLMs. And this year, all the buzz is MCP. And that's the next wave of what we're all talking about. Now, probably most of you have heard the phrase MCP, but I won't embarrass anyone, but I imagine the majority of us don't actually know what the heck that is, right? Well, the good news is that I'm going to spend a little bit of time and talk about it, because I think it's important to, first of all, just broadly to understand, but also as we talk about a future of our product and other products, it'll become an integral part of how we ultimately serve you all. So, MCP is Model Context Protocol. And it was introduced by Anthropic about 18 months ago. And they originally, their vision was to how they could interact with other large language models in some sort of format. And so they developed this standard, they introduced it, like all new standards, it gets kicked around for a while. And eventually everyone agreed, and this became part of now the lexicon of how these large language models integrated together. But where it really picked up speed is in the last 6 months or so, you're seeing lots of software providers are also supporting this standard and using it as a way to interoperate. And it's now become the thing where everyone is announcing their MCP services. So kind of what's this mean? How does this work? So the idea is that if you add MCP-enabled apps in your enterprise, those apps can work across the boundaries of each other to look for data and processes that you can perform on your behalf. And so where historically if system A and system B needed to talk, you called IT, you said I need an interface, you went through a detailed requirements process, you scope out the interface, and 9 months to 9 years later, you have your interface, and those two systems can now talk. Then of course if you need to make a change, it takes another big cycle until that changes. And for any IT people in the room, I used to be IT as well, so I'm making fun of myself here in the process. But in the world of MCP, you don't have to have defined interfaces. As long as you have MCP connections, MCP seeks out that information in these systems, and it will return it to the user. So it's this new, very powerful mechanism to bridge data across the enterprise. So let me go into further detail here and use an example. So let's say I'm a manufacturer and I need a new alternate part for one of my products. And so, of course, I use Propel because I'm a leading manufacturer. So I log into Propel, pull up the bill of material, see what we currently have available for alternate parts. I'm not seeing what I need there, so I go pull up the AVL and what other vendors might we be able to look for here. Take that information, I then go log into my SAP system, see who we have procurement agreements with, maybe if there's lead time or cost information available. I then go and log into Claude, and I ask Claude to create an RFQ for me that I can send out to these vendors. And then I log into my email, and then I send that out. Right? That's fairly typical business process flow that many of us may do. Well, in the world of MCP, what you do is you log into your MCP client. In this case, Claude's the example. And in Claude, you literally type in the following. You say, for product ABC, I'd like to understand what the alternate parts are. If there aren't existing alternate parts, please look up in the AVL manufacturers that could potentially supply this part for us. I'd like to understand the lead time and costing and procurement agreements with this, and then need to create an RFQ and draft an email to send out to all those providers. And then MCP does its stuff, and it goes and it does those actions for you. Now you notice when I went through that, I didn't say log into Propel to look for X, log into SAP to look for Y. You just type what you need, and MCP figures out where to go get it. Now, it's not currently perfect. It'll, the first pass in this stuff, some stuff it may not be right. You may have to adjust the prompt or the data that returns, you'll be able to look at and you can edit yourself. But the idea is in natural language, you tell it what you want, what you're looking for, and it helps you sort this out. So incredibly powerful new model and way to think about interacting with systems. So therefore, of course, Propel is joining the MCP revolution. So available today-ish, Eric will clarify exactly when, but available our Propel MCP server so that you can connect Propel to all of your other MCP-enabled applications in your enterprise. And so in the future, when you want access to Propel information, you can log in through your favorite MCP agent, ChatGPT, Claude, other, and you can ask it information. You can say, hey, what's the status of this change order? I need to understand how many quality incidents look like X, Y, or Z. or please update this bill of material with the following. So the idea, you can, from outside Propel, update or query your Propel information. As well as from Propel, you can query other MCP-enabled data and return it back to Propel for your use within Propel flows. And so all this is the idea of bringing together the enterprise data to much more effectively allow you to do your job. And so as we think into the future about how people will leverage Propel, we kind of think about it across these three vectors. One is what we call deep work. That is, you have a detailed change analysis you have to do. You're doing research around a quality incident. You have to do a number of tasks in Propel. We expect you'll continue to log into Propel. It'll be the same UI you know and love today, and we'll continue to make better, that you go in and do those functions. There's other times you need quick work. You just need a piece of data out of the system. What's the status of this? Do I have a training due? Whatever that thing might be. And if you happen to be in Slack, or you're in Google, or you're doing something in ChatGPT, you can ask it and you can get the information back from Propel. And then the third is this agent-to-agent world. And that is if you have an agent running in another system through another provider, and it needs Propel information, the agent can then speak to the agent on the Propel side. They can exchange information and return it. So there's times when you never have to log in at all, and the Propel data can flow appropriately. So this is the brave new world that we envision for how all of you and your users will be leveraging Propel in the future. We're ready today for that future, and as this picture evolves over time, trust that we will be there with you to continue to evolve with you. And so just to kind of build this up as wow, geez, Ross, there's a lot. Propel seems like it's changing a lot. Help me understand what this really looks like. So at its core is still the Propel you know and love. The modules, the core processes, the actions that we do today, and that is our core. We'll continue to invest deeply in this, and this is the core of Propel that you can count on forevermore. Of course, we enrich that now with DesignHub and Build and other partners. They can bring in core data from CAD tools, and Eric will talk a little bit later about how we also will enhance integration downstream to ERPs as well. So that's the base. That base sits on immense amounts of data. There's, of course, the Propel data, Salesforce data, unstructured data, data lakes. All of that data is available for you to use across Propel. And that can interact with different large language models that you securely set up. We talked last year about Propel One, and many of you are starting to use Propel One. We're very excited. That continues. That's the agentic layer which sits on top of Propel to help allow you more effectively and more efficiently to drive your processes. As we just talked about, that now with MCP, you can do those outside Propel as well. And then ultimately, you interact with Propel, today through the user interface, through Propel, potentially through Salesforce. But as I just mentioned, going forward, you can really interact with Propel from any place. And that is Propel now on a slide, what it all looks like. So to kind of wrap this up for me, we're really excited about what we've done here, continuing to leverage AI to build out MCP. And we're very proud of our continued level of innovation that we've been driving. We've been adding new modules. We've been continuing to enhance the existing functionality in Propel. And our rate of acceleration on that is dramatically increasing. Kishore will later today talk a lot about our core development processes and how we are leveraging AI to make ourselves a better software development provider. And our stats are that our engineers are now 50% more productive leveraging this technology, and that number is going to grow over time as we continue to better adopt these tools to drive our own productivity. So with that, I'd like to invite Eric Schrader up on stage. Eric's our Chief Product Officer, and he'll walk you through more detail about the next level of product innovation. Eric.
Thanks, Ross, and great to see everybody, new and old faces. So Ross did a great job of kind of outlining all of the challenges that are facing us today, the economic, the geopolitical, and certainly AI disruption, right? And those are all going to reshape how we innovate from a product perspective. So I think what we've witnessed in the last year is that manufacturing companies have gone from kind of doing experiments with AI to actually building out new processes and workflows and starting to take those on this year. And as part of that, they're also looking at the challenge of the fragmentation of data and collaboration across that's potentially impeding or standing in the way of that AI innovation, or just moving quicker at a higher agility. So I want to maybe dig down a little bit on that product side from the fragmentation perspective. We know that almost 80% of the cost is baked in by the time a product leaves the design cycle, and poor collaboration during that can increase that cost, and great collaboration can decrease that cost. And we did a survey last year of US manufacturing business leaders, and we found that people aren't that enthusiastic about where they stand on this collaboration. So almost 50% think they have room to improve on this. But the companies that get it right are companies that are really achieving higher revenues and higher shareholder returns. So let's talk about how we're trying to help that. So last year, in the winter release, we launched DesignHub. So this is really to drive the design handoff from engineering to the broader enterprise. And so whether it's touching your mechanical CAD, your PDMs, or your electrical CAD, having a unified process to make sure that the friction is removed. We heard you loud and clear. You were tired of the bespoke and non-evolving models of the past. And so we brought a fresh point of view to this, and we'll see it in a little bit as well. So let's think about how that design handoff works its way throughout your enterprise. So it starts with maybe a SolidWorks file, maybe an OrCAD file that gets ingested in through DesignHub and starts a process, and maybe then gets augmented with supply chain data or risk data. And then through a review process, maybe you need to collaborate on that visually. And finally, getting that prepared from a marketing perspective to launch, and making all of that available to your field service folks so that they can answer the questions that solve the problems more effectively for your customers. So I'm going to hand this off to Mike, who'll kind of take us through this flow.
Thanks, Eric. All right, today I'm going to show you how the design data-enriched product thread spans many personas to improve your outcomes for manufacturers and customers. One thread, every persona, better outcomes. Starting as a designer for a medical equipment provider, I need to automate the ingestion of data into PLM. Inside my CAD tool, I have all sorts of different files I need to ingest and bring over. Using Propel, you can see that all the files are added, fields are automatically mapped, and you can even preview the results before I commit. No surprises. Looking at a PCBA inside of Propel, I can see that the BOM structure remains the same and all the metadata is intact. Nothing gets lost in translation. Let's look at one of these items from the BOM. Noticing that it's an electrical component and my manufacturer information is here, this item is automatically enriched once it's created. I also have a contract manufacturer who is working inside of Propel. So I need to communicate him some changes that need to be made, and I can make some annotations right within Propel. This manufacturer can also make edits inside of their CAD tool. What we see is the ability to generate part numbers, pull bill of materials, and even attach files. Back inside Propel, you can see that we have a related change where both my centrifuge and my circuit board components are being added. This control process allows us to integrate this data as a part of our data control. Well, all about our manufacturers through our supply chain. I'm logging in as one of our suppliers, and you can see that all of our details, changes, and attachments of the information that we had before is included. Inside of Propel, I have my BOM structure, and I'm a product manager. And I need to get this ready for launch. So with one click, I'm able to send this information over to my marketing team. Inside of a login for my marketing team, we can see that I'm able to create variants from the team. I also have product information that's enriched from our marketing with assets, and even have a score that lets me know when this is ready to launch. Let's fast forward, and this product has been out for a year. I'm logging in to my service tool as a service tech, and here I have my asset information along with my design information and marketing details. But that's not all. I am also able to log in with Propel One, where I can ask it questions. I need to better understand the variants so I can prepare for fixing this machine. In addition, I also want to understand what are the consumables so I can make sure I bring them with when I go on site. What you've just seen is how the product thread, enriched with design data, helps orchestrate the activities of the entire value chain throughout the product lifecycle. One thread, end-to-end, built to deliver.
Awesome job, Mike. Great. So what's next, right? So a massive area of potential friction is locked away inside all of your documents. All of your specs and SOPs and all those files and the connections to your product data. So coming this year, we'll reimagine that. We'll take a new perspective on it, and we'll connect that unstructured data to your structured data, to your product. And we'll make it easy and to address comparisons of versions of your documents with a streamlined workflow and a visual comparison. And all unlocking it for potential AI use cases, whether it's generating a summary, interrogating a file, or translating a document, or connecting it to other structured data, to the rest of your products. So that's coming, and some of you in the PUG yesterday saw a preview of this as well. Beyond that, a big source of friction is connecting that product data to downstream systems. So your supply chain partners, your manufacturing and finance folks all need to get information to your product data as well. So we'll be launching Manufacturing Hub that makes it easy to integrate workflows between Propel and downstream ERPs. And we also know that a lot of you have complex products that have modularity. And so later this year, we'll be addressing, and it's really hard to manage those complex products and those modules throughout your overall product. So later this year, we'll launch capability around configurable products that will let you manage your overall product definition from a modular perspective, let you rationalize change across that modularity, and look at it from both the physical definition as well as the digital definition from a software perspective. And also understanding how those configurations and variants are represented in your manufacturing sites as well. Tying that all together to make sure that the SKUs understand what bill of materials make those, and further allowing for AI to build on that. And finally, now I'm going to share with you something that's very forward-looking. So this isn't scheduled for the roadmap, but we're investigating this. So continuing to enhance DesignHub is forward in our minds these days. And there are two problems that we're trying to address with this. One is make it really clear what happens between a change of a CAD model and make that available to the broadest population within your organization. So generating these comparisons for both textual and visual to allow non-CAD users to understand what your product is, how your product is are really changing. And the other area is around design reuse. So locked away in those CAD models are also all of the features. So being able to make those available through a semantic search to stop the duplicate part proliferation and be able to have an engineer just say, is there a part like this? And not have it be based on the text that's in your system, but also the geometry that's being managed. So let's make the pivot to talk about AI. And as we all know, it's not always the technology that stops us from making moves forward. It's also how we how our organizations kind of take this on. But I think the takeaway that I have in this is that you really need to drive alignment around those high-value use cases. To that end, we announced last year Propel One, and I want to talk a little bit about it, and we'll peel the onion on these layers that are outlined here. So the embedded AI is basically integral. It's resident in Propel, and it's baked into your data and your workflows. So we'll show you some examples of that, but it basically allows you to start someplace without having to program, get concerned with programming or models or anything from a technical perspective. And then composable AI is to allow you to have the tools that you need to extend. So we know that you're all going to have specific workflows or specific agents that you want to also create. So giving you some capability there to develop your own. And finally, as Ross talked about earlier, the networked AI, what we call networked AI is the MCP. So how are we going to help you drive AI usage across your organization and across your systems landscape? So let's talk a little bit about embedded. So it's baked in, pre-configured agents that cover the common use cases and daily workflows that we might have. So an example of that is basically interrogating a document. And so everybody wants to understand what changed, or can I get a bit more information that's specific that I know is in here someplace, but it's 40 pages and I don't want to look at it. To being able to just ask some questions to your document. It could be generating a quiz. We talked about this last year, but these are not just predefined agents, they're also enriched with prompts to drive user adoption, so guiding you through the process. As well as expediting a change, so summarize what's going on in this change, and maybe create some tasks for the open items that I need to have addressed in order to move this change forward. But what's coming? So later this year, we'll release Awesome, Mike. So let's now turn our attention to composable AI. And this is where we let you extend. So it's really about giving you the tools and the starting point in which you can build your own workflows and agents. So we start with skills. Skills are just all of the find products, search products, create products or items or whatever. So they're all the actions that you might need in order to build an agent. We then provide you an agent builder, and this is a framework that has templates, and you can build your own agent based on those skills and leverage all those skills to build a unique workflow for you, giving you the instructions that you need. And finally, if it's a more complex process in order to drive adoption, you may want to add a prompt template to it to make sure that the user can easily work through this agent. With that, I'll give you Mike again.
Awesome. All right, for this scenario, I'm out in the field and I'm interacting with customers. In this specific case, a doctor is giving us feedback about a recent use of our equipment. Unfortunately, I don't have my computer with me, but I do have access through Slack on my tablet. Here I am in Slack, and I'm starting with what kind of incident that I'm seeing. Then I'm going to use the prompt to fill out all the rich details that the doctor has given me. In this case, I'm going to capture what is happening, and it's going to go and generate an incident for me. In addition, since I have my tablet, I'm able to take a picture and upload this through Slack. Adding this through the prompt is then going through and adding this to the incident. We can see inside Propel that all these rich details from the prompt are added, the affected item was found, and that attachment that you just saw me add through Slack is added. I know what you're thinking, so how did you do all of this? Well, it starts with the flow. And inside Propel, I'm able to generate a new flow. You can see I have a lot of really good templates here for me to use. Or I can use AI from within the template creator to generate a new flow. I simply describe what I want this flow to be, and a flow is generated for me. Here, I can make any edits or changes or tweaks to this. Now, I want to put this flow into motion, so I need to invoke the flow with an agent. Building an agent is just as simple. I start by generating a new agent, and again, you can see that I have lots of great templates I can use. In addition, I also have the same AI ability to generate a new agent. Again, I'm going to describe what I want this agent to do, including that flow that I just generated. By saving this is an agent that can be reused and repeated. Once this is generated, I can see all the settings that were automated from this creation, the topics that were created, the ability to create an incident, and even adding that flow that we just generated. In addition, I was interacting through Slack, and that's as simple as adding it through the connections that you see here. You've just seen how simple it is to create a new flow and package agents based off the skills and templates that we have.
Awesome, Mike. So finally, let's look at networked AI and a kind of a deeper look at MCP. So you've invested in a lot of tools. Maybe you've invested in different tools within your organization from an AI perspective. Maybe different AI clients or AI servers. And you also have invested in a lot of different systems across your organization. And unlocking that and making that all part of your product thread is what networked AI is all about. So let's take a look at these two examples. So one is basically using an MCP client to leverage your Propel data in your AI, from your AI clients. So whatever the MCP client is, you enable the Propel MCP server in that environment, and then you can interact with Propel from your AI client. The other way to leverage MCPs is to really think about them as augmenting agents from within Propel. You can do that by adding these third-party MCP tools as just another tool in the toolbox that the agents can draw upon. So as an example, I may want to take my list of affected items from a change and understand what the inventory level is and what the cost is against those in my NetSuite ERP. Or I may want to look at my AML for a given product and see if there are some better alternate parts that have a better end of life or a lower risk by querying SiliconExpert. So all of those agents can be enabled from, all of those third-party MCPs can be enabled from your agents within Propel. So let's look at an example of that.
Awesome. I'm now going to show you how Propel's networked AI enables a manager to quickly change an assembly due to a gap in a supply chain, where a backordered critical component has stopped your production line. I start by looking for the backordered part using information I know and common language. In addition, I also need to make sure that the specifications for the backordered part are met by components that I use to replace it with. I can see here that it's not actually part of the mechanical assembly, but part of the electrical assembly. Very quickly, I'm able to find all the information for this example that I was looking for. After reviewing this other information, I want to see if there's any other components that I have within Propel that would be an alternate for this. So I'm going to prompt it for searching through Propel and see if I can find what we have already. Quickly, I'm given the results that show me that I have two different options for this. However, unfortunately, neither of these are going to meet my requirements. What I want to do now is search the web for other options, and I'm going to have it pick out the top 5 examples for me. Very quickly, a number of examples of results that could be replacements are returned. As this data is being processed and brought in here, I'm also able to see a table. And this table gives me the details that helps me pick the 4th one because it has a better encoder. This is great. I now want to create this as a component inside of Propel. I also want to use all the information that was gathered from the search in order to generate this item inside of Propel. You can see that all the details are being processed that were from the website. And this is something that would normally have taken me a lot of time to get all these details and enter into Propel. Looking inside of Propel, you can see this new item that was created, along with notes that were added with the rich details from that discovery. Wow, this is awesome. I now want to replace this stepper motor with the subassembly component that's already in there. It's going to go and look for the assembly, and it prompts me to ensure that it understands what I'm asking. Yes, I want to replace the old stepper motor with the new one I found, but also I need to keep all the other components that are inside of that subassembly. Going through a process, the rev is automatically changed. I have a draft, and you can see here that that original one was crossed out with a new one. Inside Propel, I can confirm, and you can see that with this draft, the previous motor is exchanged with the new one. Fantastic. All right, now I want to make this change official, so I'm going to create a change order. A new category is understood, and a change order is automatically generated for me. What also is understood is that both the item and the assembly need to be included, along with a great justification that I can use in the details of my change order. The final steps are being made, and a new change order is being processed. Going to the change, we can see that the category, along with the description and that rich justification, is included, along with the affected items that I have. You've just seen how you can engage with Propel data from your AI clients.